skydiving. This is amazing.
Yeah, but you know what else is amazing? An iPhone 6S for just $49 at Metro.
Really?
Imagine streaming all the way down with that amazing camera. I'm switching.
That's smart.
You know what else is smart? Parachutes.
Switch to Metro and get an amazing iPhone 6S for only $49. Metro by T-Mobile. Phone offer requires port-in of number not currently active on T-Mobile network or active on Metro in past 90 days. See store for details and terms and conditions.
Here's to good friends, the ones we hold dear, the ones who will tell us what we need to hear, the ones who love us, right or wrong, and to all those good friends who give you this song.
Well, hello good friends, and welcome back to The Last Walk, Remember When, with your host, Ron Baumbach. And get ready, we're going back to the fun times, the fun times of your mind. So, get off your easy chair, walk over to your fridge and your stove, reach up into the cupboard, take out a box of Wheatina, mix it with some milk, and put it on the pot of stove. I think some water too. Make it so it's nice and smooth. Reach out into your cupboard, in the bread box, take out a couple of devil dogs for dessert, sit back in a chair, turn on the lava lamp, close your eyes, get ready, it's storytelling time. The Last Walk is back.
Life is too short, we get only one turn. With luck we find beauty, but we sometimes get burned. But if you've had a true friend, or perhaps love, you've experienced the peace of heaven above.
Now, as many of you probably know, or if you didn't know, you'll know now, this radio show is based on a book I wrote about growing up in the 50s, 60s, and 70s in a lovely town called Wilson Park, Mineola, Long Island, New York. But it's about America, about the world, about growing up together in a different era. And basically, we did a walk, my family and I, house by house, of the people who nurtured us, helped us grow up, we played with, who disciplined us, whatever it was, they were there for us all the time, 24/7. It was one incredible block to live on. And as we walked down the street for the last time, together, my two brothers and my sister and I, and our wives and husbands and children, we crossed the road called Marcellus Road, or simply called Marcellus, as the natives would say back then. And right in front of us was a home of people we knew real well. We didn't have a clue who lived there currently, but to us it was these really nice people. It was a light tan house located on the corner with the entrance on our memory lane, but with their garage towards the back of the house with the driveway facing Marcellus Road. Now, they had a lot of kids. We tried to remember the names and how many there were. Perhaps there were 10, 11, 9. I thought 10. I rolled the dice on 10. I befriended a fellow named Steve, the oldest one in the family, who was about a year younger than me. He and I and another friend named Steve created our own version of the Three Stooges. And I was chosen to be Curly. Maybe because we knew the future of my incredibly gorgeous hairline. Curly, if you knew what he was, didn't have much growing on top of the old head, the chrome dome. Now, Steve and I somehow managed to talk Steve's dad, Frank, into letting us build a clubhouse behind their garage. It was going to be so cool. Not really a super spectacular unit, but a cool place to be that we could hang out in and just have our own little get-togethers and talk about life and read comic books and plan the next scientific adventure. And it worked really good until one day it was really hot and we had no ventilation and someone had to come rescue us out of it, out of the trap door in the ceiling. It was not fun. So Frank, the father, managed to take it down and we were not happy. We wanted to get t-shirts someday later saying, I survived the sweltering clubhouse of 1959. Now, I remember back in 1960, I think it was the spring of 60, we created our own business, a local street newspaper called the Houston Avenue News. We only sold a few copies, probably because I argued we should charge a nickel and no one else wanted to charge anything for it, but we made this paper up. We made about 15 cents in 1960. Our first attempt, we had one issue, and that was it. It went out of business, kaplunk. The first and only time our block published our own paper, I do so believe. We also did a puppet show back then in the neighborhood, for which we also charged admission. That show also lasted one show. Even though we had great reviews, everyone was tickled pink to see it. The freebie kids in the first row didn't really appreciate the fact that it was they got a free admission for the first show, but not the second. Sadly, there was no second, but they had great reviews. Now, my friend Steve, the younger Steve, was like our neighborhood block scientist. He knew how to do the most incredible things I never dreamt of thinking of, Steve would think of doing. And he could get it done. And he also had a great gift of convincing me to help him. And I had no idea what I was doing. I was the basic lug nut, the curly, helping haul the stuff around for Steve the scientist, who would develop these incredible adventures of what our next adventure would be. Now, Steve was like a young version of Doc from Back to the Future, but he looked in a very complimentary way, very similar to the NBA All-Star, I think Hall of Famer, Dirk Nowitzki. He had that look, and he was a tall, thin fella, and he had the mind of a Doc from Back to the Future, as I mentioned. He would creatively think and talk about how we would someday launch ourselves into space. And he would go with me to the favorite baseball field, not to play baseball, though I love baseball, but Steve wasn't into baseball that much. He was into science. So we would go down there to the lots by Fachamosa Boulevard in Mineola, which is now owned by Mineola High School, I believe, or Chaminade, and we would attempt to venture into our very own space journey. So this one Saturday, after a series of many failed attempts, I recalled we actually successfully launched a mission to outer space. Steve convinced me that he could get a frog. Don't know where he got the frog from. I'm not quite sure he had a frog. I never saw the frog. But Steve convinced me he had a frog. And we put this frog in a capsule, and it went up in outer space. It actually did explode off our makeshift launch pad. As it took off and sailed high into the sky, we looked up with ageless wonder of youth and scientific genius, only to see it come swiftly back 100 yards from our home-built Cape Canaveral. It did go way up. It was high, 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 almost like a Mickey Mantle home run. And as balls go up, the balls come down. And this missile came down. As we found our space capsule way over the other part of the field, we searched for our passenger. Don't know if Steve actually put this frog in there. He told me he did, told me he didn't. I can't tell whether we had our first Astro Frog in space. Now maybe Astro Frog is still orbiting the world. I'm not sure, but we never found him. And Steve never told me the truth, whether he put the frog in the capsule, or whether he had a frog in the first place. It may have been a dream he created, but in my mind, I picture a frog going around space forever and ever, watching the world from a totally different view.
Life is too short, we get only one turn. With luck we find beauty, but we sometimes get burned. But if you've had a true friend, or perhaps love, you've experienced the peace of heaven above.
Now, my dad was not really into the sciences, except when it came to CB radios. He would have a real ball talking to all these new friends he made, and he made up funny stories about whom he was, and who they were. He called everyone Charlie Ox. Don't know where he got that name from, Charlie Ox, but that was his handle, Charlie Ox. We don't know what Charlie Ox looked like, what he was. Whenever Dad forgot someone's name, he would call him Charlie Ox. So that was a name Dad always used when he was on his CB radio. Cool handle, 10-4, Charlie Ox, over and out, 10-4, Charlie Ox. Dad had the most hilarious time doing the silliest things with these people in the land of CB.
Oh, I've been so lucky and I've been so blessed. In spite of my failings, I've found success. For I've known love and I've known good times, and I have known friendship and written some rhymes.
It's funny how things work in life. My friend Steve unfortunately passed away a few years back. We lost touch, didn't really see each other at all for the last 30, 40 years. But ironically enough, through one of my sons playing high school and college basketball, we got to meet Steve's sister, and we stayed in touch, and she's part of our block reunion group as we get together in the past and in the future. So it's funny how things happen in life. And as my siblings and I and our families did our walk in the year 2000 on our block we grew up on, we reflected quite fondly about how wonderful a friend their mom Joan was to our mom, how she would often walk down the block in the evening, sit with our next door neighbor and our mom on their stoop or our stoop, and incredible, the three of them get together and just chit-chat. And we stood in front of their home, and it seemed so quiet now versus years ago with all those kids. It seemed so different than what we recalled. But the memories surely lived on inside. They lived on in our mind as well. The Thomases taught me imagination, scientific imagination, the thrill of wondering why. And our walk continued. You've been listening to The Last Walk, Remember When, with your host, Ron Baumbach. And the song you've been hearing has been Here's to Good Friends, written, sung, and composed by our good friend Paul Casone. And a special thanks goes out to my great friend Mike from his studios in his basement in the state of Tennessee for all the hard work on making our voice and production sound so much better. And a special thanks to my good friend Mike again for allowing me to use the new music he created and we use on the show. Thanks so much, Mike. I really appreciate it. The Last Walk on a Block is available on Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com. It's in Nook, print and Kindle versions. In addition, Ron Baumbach's available to talk to your group about the people, places, and things from the 1950s, 60s, and 70s. If you're interested, we have a great time. Reach out to Ron and we'll do our best to be there. In the meantime, have a great week. See you next time on The Last Walk. Remember when.
Here's to good friends, the ones we hold dear, the ones who will tell us what we need to hear, the ones who love us right or wrong, and to all those good friends who give you this song, and to all those good friends who give you this song.
skydiving. This is amazing.
Yeah, but you know what else is amazing? An iPhone 6S for just $49.